Yeah, hi, good day, people. Moin away from the Kyrgyz as always, Hunter as usual. This is going to be me doing a live geolocation chart, and Maciej is simply going to watch me do it. I am going to do Italy this time, as in the country Italy, as you can tell based on the description of this video and whatnot. Hold on, first I need to share the screen. So yeah, this is the chart. You can see it here for yourself. Give me a moment. Let me just configure stuff. Oh, you show thumbnail. Yeah, exactly, thumbnail. Okay. Now, so yeah, let's begin. Yeah, let's begin. You can see for yourself info Italy. This is a chart that embodies and denotes and or gives away the properties of Italy as a nation. One of my customers and or followers, he is from Italy. He knows who he is. He pegged this, and by coincidence, I'm covering it, just like I said in prior geolocation videos. So let's get started. Now, first house. Italy, the ascendant of Italy is ruled by 14 degrees in Pisces, and you've got Neptune in Pisces as well, but it's going retrograde. Now, first up, that stands for the fact that Italy is surrounded by a good deal of water, which we already know based on basic geographical placements of Italy. The fact that Neptune is going retrograde stands for the fact that throughout Italy's history, the territory that is known officially as Italy, water has been used to its disadvantage. Let's just put it that way. So people have tried to essentially invade what is modern day Italy and whatnot, to obviously just plain invade Italy through using water, essentially. So by ships and whatnot. So via land, or I mean via sea, and then entering the land of Italy itself. For the rest, you've got Chiron there. Chiron is dismissive, nothing really worth mentioning there. You've got the North Node there in Aries, and the South Node obviously in Libra. The North Node is right next to the Earth, and the Earth is in Taurus, quite strong, in Taurus's house notably. Both of these simply stand for the fact that Italy is, throughout its existence, Italy has focused on becoming a global economic superpower, but and Italy should focus on that and investing more, but that has never come to fruition or come to pass. You've got Jupiter, 11 degrees in Taurus, also in the second house. It would be a really strong placement if Jupiter wasn't going retrograde. That simply stands for the fact that Italy has had to deal with economic downturns of a significant nature and crippling debt throughout its existence on occasion. So the potential has been there for economic prosperity and whatnot and economic strength, but with Italy, it's more of a coming and going. You've got Uranus as well in Taurus going retrograde. Uranus in Taurus going retrograde stands for the fact that, and it's in the third house, which denotes infrastructure, stands for the fact that infrastructure in Italy throughout its existence has been uneven, okay? And it's generally speaking uneven due to, generally speaking, a lack of financial input. That's why Uranus is in Taurus. And it's also conjunct the third house. Now, the power of fortune is in Cancer in the fourth house, the house of Cancer, quite strong, which stands for the fact that Italy has a good deal of household related values, or in the way of household related values. Italians value, generally speaking, social structure and the overall importance of family and the household very much so. Not to mention the fact that Italy is also world renowned for its culinary delights. I mean, who doesn't love pizza, let alone spaghetti and whatnot, as well as bolognese, etc. You name it. Okay. One of the things that we recognize Italians by default for Italy as a nation is pizza and a bunch of other Italian dishes that are seen as like high level culinarily speaking. Okay, one of the things that Cancer deals with is obviously food, so you can see for yourself why that is the case. Fifth house is empty. You've got the sixth house. We're also going to skip Lilith and Juno. You've got Venus in Virgo conjunct the descendant. Venus in Virgo stands for general, and it's in the sixth house, in Virgo's house. Venus functions with difficulty, standing for in both the house as well as the zodiac sign, which are aligned, perfectly aligned. You know, Venus is in Virgo and Virgo's house. It simply stands for the fact that there are issues regarding the labor market in Italy, either anything from labor shortages to to finding employees that do their job adequately well at the very least, those kinds of issues, as well as employees getting paid a decent wage and a wage that they feel that is deserving of them. That's also why Venus is conjunct with seventh house. Okay, this is the reason that people, generally speaking, let's just say regarding the labor market, it's more superficial. You don't really have employees that are loyal specifically to the companies they work for, or work for companies and or work for companies in the long term. It's more of a short-term kind of deal, and contracts that are configured in such a manner or in such a way that that it's almost like a B2B kind of deal, that employees are more of a seasonal nature. Let me just put it that way. Now the most activity is in the eighth house, and a couple of planets are quite strong in it. You've got the Sun in Scorpio's house, as well as Mercury, as well as Mars, and Mars is at its absolute strongest there because it's one of the houses that Mars rules over, as well as the zodiac signs. So Mars is in a zodiac sign it rules over, as well as in a house it rules over, or the house it rules over. Now, all of these simply stand for the fact that Italy does well, and tremendously well, in terms of, how should I put it? In terms of economic output, not so much as earning, but serving as an intermediary regarding selling certain products that align with Scorpio, honestly. I can't think of any good examples other than just banking, private banking and whatnot. But Italy serves as a good intermediary. That's why the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are all focused on this. That's why they're all in Scorpio. All of them essentially indicate that there is a heavy focus on essentially being an intermediary or being the middleman in between parties, essentially. So bottom line is that Italians are good at selling stuff, essentially. So, like I said, there's no other phrase I can think of other than intermediary. Just think of someone that is like an outsourcing bureau. The person gets a commission and they provide, for example, a buyer with what they want from the seller, the direct seller. So as a nation, think of Italy being like Amazon or similar, only figuratively speaking. We're also going to ignore Ceres, not really necessary, as well as Pallas. 10th house is neutral. You've got Pluto and Capricorn in the 11th house. It stands for the fact that Italy, its population and the masses, generally speaking, within or throughout Italy's history, they have had to deal with metaphorical tyrants and essentially rulers that call the shots. Okay, so Italians they have had to deal with oppression in the past, whether it be metaphorical or literal or a combination of both. That's what Pluto stands for. That's why Pluto is at its strongest. One of the signs it is really strong in. Pluto simply deals with, as people already know, based on general properties. Within this context, for example, a government or an entity, an authoritative entity that deals with just that, authoritarianism. That's what Capricorn stands for. And the 11th house stands for the masses as a whole, so the majority of Italy's population throughout the ages. Last but not least, we have the Moon and Saturn in the 12th house. The Moon is in Aquarius in the 12th house, and Saturn is in Pisces going retrograde in the 12th house, so the house that Pisces rules over, of course. Generally speaking, it stands for both men and women, honestly. Okay. This stands for the fact that women, generally speaking, in Italy are quite outgoing, and they usually have hidden motives. Not necessarily motives of a bad nature, but they have obscure motives in terms of why they're exactly so social and the way they interact with people as a whole. It can range from anything to trying to acquire wealth or anything else, maybe foreign connections, you name it. So think of opportunistic women. Let me just put it that way. Both good as well as bad. But generally speaking, I would say more good, considering the fact that the moon is strong in a house like this. Okay, since the moon is strong in water signs. Moon is neutral in Aquarius, though. Last but not least, you've got Saturn in Pisces going retrograde, like I already said, which stands for the fact that throughout Italy's history, the men have had to bear the brunt of dealing with negativities and hardships overall, which puts quite a stress on them or takes quite a toll on them mentally. especially regarding, for example, work and overall labor, earning a living, you name it. That's why Saturn, for example, is opposed both Lilith and Juno, and Saturn is sextile the Earth. And not to mention the fact that Saturn is going retrograde. So the men essentially have to deal with the negativities that come along in Italian society, whether it be just providing for the family or anything relating to that. And that's pretty much it. That's what the entire chart looks like. First house is ruled by Pisces, like I said. The second house is ruled by Aries. It stands for turbulent thingies, honestly. It stands for turbulent income, turbulent finances. So essentially, Italy's GDP since its existence. The third house is ruled by Taurus, standing for the fact that its infrastructure is reliant primarily on economic output. I mean, more so compared to the average country. The fourth house is ruled by Gemini, stands for the fact that household is comprised of communication. The fifth house is ruled by Cancer, and the part of fortune is conjunct. Yes, it is conjunct, although it's off by like close to a minute or so, but it still counts as a conjunction, albeit a weak conjunction. Again, and since the fifth house simply deals with art forms and leisurely activities and whatnot, things you do for fun. Again, one of Italy's most outstanding features are things that you do for fun. Okay, I mean, just think of the things that people go on vacation to Italy, what they do essentially, whether it's sightseeing, viewing the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That's in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Pisa's in Italy. The Colosseum, Il Colosseo. To anything, going to fancy Italian restaurants, anything. You can see the connection right here. Sixth house is ruled by Leo, which stands for instability on the labor market, like I said. Seventh house is ruled by Virgo, which stands for being picky and discriminatory in terms of the way Italian people interact with each other at an intimate level. They're very selective in terms of whom they deal with. The eighth house is ruled by Libra, which stands for a balance and an equilibrium and good to above average quality in terms of the aforementioned properties that I discussed relating to Italy in relation to the planetary placements there. The eighth house has the most activity, as you can clearly tell and or see. The ninth house that deals with just overall foreign policy and politics and whatnot is ruled by Scorpio, which stands for the fact that Italy can be borderline coercive sometimes to serve in its own best interest and whatnot, which is fully understandable. The 10th house is ruled by Sagittarius, which stands for the fact that Italy primarily deals with foreign policies at an authoritative level. So, political heads of state and whatnot, they have to deal with stuff like that. Unsurprisingly, the 11th house is ruled by Capricorn, which stands for the fact that people in Italy, generally speaking, they can be somewhat cold, especially when it comes to dealing with business and when it comes to living standards and whatnot. They can be somewhat emotionless, which I can understand, and I've also experienced that personally. I mean, of course, this applies to some people in general. It applies to some conditions and circumstances. It does not apply to essentially people when they try to bond with each other and whatnot. This is simply in response to conditions, the aforementioned condition that Pluto outlines. And the 12th house is ruled by Aquarius, which stands for the fact that the masses in general, people in Italy, they generally speaking just keep their motivations hidden. A keyword is privacy. Let me just put it that way. People are more of a private nature. They're more reserved, essentially. They don't just openly share everything that is on their mind with anyone. And again, one also needs to note the fact that, again, the waters that Italy is surrounded by, as well as, I forgot the Italian city where you take a gondola. Gondola is like those ships, those romantic ships, those boat rides where you usually have people and there is someone that serenades you. I forgot what that city is called, where you have
Venezia?
a bunch of waterways. Yeah, Venezia. Thanks, Maciej. Yeah, Venice in English.
Venice.
In
Venice,
Italian,
not
Venezio,
Venus.
I think.
Venice.
Yeah, Venezio or Venezia, whatever. In any case, that's also what this house denotes, that that Italy as a whole does make use of all the water it has at its disposal. So yeah, as you can see, as always, everything lines up perfectly. Again, the north and the south node both indicate that both indicate what I already said earlier, that essentially Italians should focus more on making money and investing more energy in making money, and them acting essentially as a middleman or intermediary regarding trade and commerce. That side of their so-called personality as a nation is already, or just plain personality as a nation, is already well developed enough. So that is it. Before I go, did you have any questions by any chance, Maciej? Or
Yeah,
any remarks or anything?
I was just wondering what that trine or triangle between the Saturn and Sun and part of fortune stands for.
This stands for all the properties that I said that Saturn, the part of fortune, and the Sun embody, that they work in perfect harmony with each other. It simply says that it's one of Italy's strongest traits, especially the part of fortune, since the part of fortune is like super strong. In this specific case, part of fortune is already strong in Cancer, and then it's in Cancer's house, like really, really strong. That's what all of those connections stand for.
I was also wondering if the Venus in the sixth house, so Virgo, and also at Virgo, essentially stands for the fact that the Italy is known by a lot of procedures, and especially regarding the work conditions and circumstances. For example, compared to other countries, there are lesser procedures in order to become such a job or profession.
You mean regulations, labor-based
regulations?
Yeah, no, that's also what it can stand for. Okay, it's one of the many things. I simply summarized it. Anything else?
No, not really. I think everything is clear.
Okay, so that's essentially it, guys. Thanks again, as always, and I would say until next time. Ciao.